Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Get in Tune. I'm Michael Grossegg. It's a special show tonight. Normally I'm live Wednesday nights, and I will have a show Wednesday night. Actually, I got a show. My Wednesday night show is actually going to be something that's going to spread throughout July, so don't miss that show. But tonight, I'm going to be talking to a filmmaker, which is, I know, a little different than what I normally do. I'm usually comics, sometimes animation when I can, but, as an animator, uh, I technically could be called a filmmaker. I love film. I love just story in general. That's why I'm always talking about story, comics, whatever. And there's a really cool Kickstarter up, and I'm going to bring on the filmmaker and the man behind this indie film called Brazing. Let's bring on Bryan Rubio. I'm sorry, did I say it right? Rubio? I'm so bad.
It's all right, Gracia. It's Ribeiro.
Thanks. How do you say it? I'm so bad.
Oh no, it's Bryan Ribeiro.
Ribeiro. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Rubinox.
Listen, I can't even say Italian names properly, and I've been
Mamma
Italian since the
mia.
day I was born. So
Yeah, so is my great grandmother. So
I do apologize.
it's okay.
I practiced off the air. While we were both, while I was waiting for everything, I'm saying your name. I'm like, I got it, and then I went into my speech and I screwed it up. So
It's tough. It's tough.
I'm sorry. I do apologize. No, because people have messed up my names. I hate messing up people's names.
No, it's okay.
So I want to say hi to Dylan watching. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Dylan.
So you've been really into film. Tell us how, a little bit about yourself, how you got into film, what kind of stuff influences you.
Well, I think similar to you, I was always fascinated by animation and sequential art, specifically in the time sector. When we met, I was intrigued by your comic book stand, so I'd always like anything related to that. Initially, I went to college for game design. I'm a big nerd, as we all are, and took a filmmaking class, realized that editing was something that I could do, and I had done it when I was just a young kid playing on Windows Movie Maker back in the day. And then after realizing I could make a job out of it, I did that. I jumped over the barrier of entry, and I've worked at a bunch of different places. Right now, I'm contracted at Disney Streaming, and in the meanwhile, doing all this work that's more corporate or more marketing or more social media based. I moonlight as a filmmaker and get to work on passion projects while supporting myself in the day with 9 to 6s, but they all correlate. So
yeah. No, that's great. I mean, I love editing. I used to teach. I spent 20 years of my career as a teacher, and mostly teaching college. And I taught the entire Adobe suite at the time. So Premiere, After Effects, back now it's called Animate, but back when it was Flash, Photoshop, Illustrator. I taught everything. And at multiple colleges I did this, and I worked professionally. I've been working professionally since I was 18 years old, and one of my first jobs out after I started doing art full time was doing video editing, and I was actually doing it for a small independent educational software company. So they'd have these video clips, and I'd edit them down to tell the story of what's going on, with it. And I actually worked for that was my first job in the company, was doing character design and animation. But then they found out I knew how to edit video, and I started doing that professionally for them.
And that's worked itself around for you because you post a lot of character driven strips essentially. So
and when I do my strips, like the Wiz that he's in the background there, and down below me here, everything I write, I actually write for animation. I've been talking with some friends of mine lately, and I'm a big, animation and comics are my two passions. And I haven't animated in such a long time, and I'm like, I need to get back to it. I said I was going to do it and make 2023 my animation year, but that didn't happen. So I'm going to start pretty soon bringing back, working on some small little animated shorts. But all these little comics I make, 3-panel, 1-panel, whatever it is, they're written specifically to be animated. So I always think my jokes will work better if you see them animated. So that's what I'm going to just start doing.
Do you also want to like voice act them? Do you want to produce them in that sense?
I'm not a great voice actor. I mean, I could do voices and silly stuff. I'm not great with like accents or anything like that. I have some friends I know that can voice act, so I'm gonna, possibly work with them. But
Yeah, and there's always Fiverr. There's always just a quick like
no, I
small
know,
gig.
yeah, exactly. And but I'll produce everything myself. I have all the software to do it. I have all the skill to do it all myself. The only thing that I don't have the skill for really is music.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to look into royalty-free sounds, or
Yeah.
maybe see if I can cut a deal with a musician friend of mine or something.
Yeah,
See what goes
YouTube
on.
has a whole library of it, and there's so you already know there's just tons of
Yeah.
resources there and stuff. And and at that point and at this stage, you can experiment, so you don't have to be married to one idea.
Yeah, exactly. I got a lot of, but I got a lot of tons. It's good. My dream when I was a kid was to be an animator, but it was this. I'll give you my short story, and then I want to hear all about you because the show is never about me. When I was a kid, I loved animation, still do. Hanna-Barbera, and I'm looking up at my walls because I have a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff in here.
Sure.
Was one of my favorite companies. I loved Magilla Gorilla, Ricochet Rabbit, which was part of the Magilla Gorilla show, but like anything, all their like cartoon animal type of humor stuff. And of course, I got into Looney Tunes, and I loved all that stuff. My goal was to animate like Hanna-Barbera-esque style cartoons with like Looney Tune humor, you know. Or do full motion like Looney Tune style stuff. So I went to when I went to school, I learned how to be a character animator. That's basically what I went to school for. I just never did it professionally, like full time. I never decided to go out to California at the time or any of the other places because here in New York that wasn't what you got a job doing, you know. Um, and I'll just quickly, when I was getting into the industry, a lot of studios were cutting full-time employees to freelance, so they didn't have to pay things like medical insurance and things like. And due to my medical issues, I always needed to find a job with, with insurance.
Benefits.
So yeah, so I never tried to go out to California and see if I can get a gig with a company. But in the late '90s, early 2000s, when Flash was starting to see Flash animations, I worked on a lot of the stuff that was produced like in New York and Connecticut. I worked on a few of those things. I wish I still had them to show people to see what I was doing. But I actually got, I worked with people who were traditional animators, and I got an education from them.
Right.
And I was taught, even though I went to school, but that's what I got even like, well, we've been doing this for years this way, and this is what we're doing now. So
transition to digital.
Yeah. So yeah. I did all that, and then everything was really worked to make sure I had benefits. So animation kind of fell to a side for me, and then. But when I was about 13 years old, even though I always loved comics, I found I could tell my story quicker in comics than I could with animation. So I kind of started moving towards comics, and now I just kind of float in between. And I'm just like I'm at the point where I'm ready. I want to jump into animation again. I just want to start making stories and telling those stories.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's never too late, one, and I think two, if you feel like you have a burgeoning desire to do it, even if you have that mountain in front of you, and that first step is always the hardest, I think it's going to be worth the suffering, because it is going to it's going to hurt.
Oh yeah, no. But I can sit in front of my synth. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, animation, drawing, whatever it is. I can sit and look down right here, literally for 12 to 16 hours a day. I've done it.
Yeah.
I have done it where I'll take a Saturday and I'm just in the studio all day working, and then I go out and I'm in the living room spending time with my wife, and she's like, "Are you?" And I'm exhausted just because of the mentalness of it. But the first thing I do is I pick up a drawing pad. So even if I'm done on here and I go sit in the living room, my drawing pad's with me. So I'm just that's just me. But let's really focus on you here, because that's what this is about. So you were saying you always loved You always loved film, you loved animation. Um, who are some of your influences in you know in storytelling? And listen, you could say anybody. You could be like Walt Disney, Alfred Hitchcock. It doesn't, like, I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think that because we were talking about animation for so long, I think Gendy Tartovsky is a good example of somebody who I love.
This stuff. Yeah.
Um, but that's more in the animation field. But the
Yeah.
way he's drawing his boards out and the way he likes to put his camera and the way he blocks everything, I think is really good. And it's inspired by a lot of old Japanese films
Yeah.
and that sort of style. But I think some more common ones now are Darren Aronofsky, who's done recently The Whale, Pi, Requiem of a Dream. He's always my favorite because a lot of his films have to do basically with somebody who's driven to the point of self-destruction um, in an incredible dramatic way. I think another recent one is the gentleman who did Whiplash, Damien Chazelle, I think is his name. And similarly, it's always about somebody who wants to succeed, even at the cost of something. And I think there are some layers that get explored similarly in my short film about somebody who wants to succeed, potentially at the risk of something greater.
Mhm.
But there are tons of influences I take from uh, animators like Gendy or filmmakers like that. But there are tons of small inspirations that are just around me. I have tons of indie graphic novels that I pull storyboard ideas for. When we were storyboarding the film, I was looking at a couple of the stuff I have. Not all of them are superhero based. A lot of them are just sort of slice of life explorations
Yeah.
of character, just learning how to swim or moving to a different state and going down to you know to the music. Even somebody who is going to definitely be an inspiration for that sonic background of the film is somebody like Clint Mansell, who worked on Requiem of a Dream
Mhm.
and other Darren Aronofsky's work. So with film, it's a whole gamut of different um, artists and creatives to sort of pull from. So I can't really just say one. Right now, we're going to shoot in 3 days. So right now, I'm thinking, hey, let me look at as many films and pieces as possible.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm watching House of Cards because one of the actors is in that show, and seeing him is just allowing me to fanboy and also sort of get ideas potentially of how we can maybe shoot this a little differently or change the angle or have the character enunciate in a different way. So
No, that's interesting. I the actor. Do you want to mention his name? Who's in it? Or
yeah, sure.
yeah.
So the gentleman Nathan Darrow, known for playing Meacham in House of Cards, and he's also known for playing Mr. Freeze in Gotham. He's worked opposite Robert De Niro in a movie called Wizard of Lies about Bernie Madoff and the Ponzi scheme he did a couple of years back. He's fantastic. I've spoken with him briefly. We had an excellent table read with the entire cast. And he's incredibly giving with his time and very emotionally available as well.
That's great. That's great. I like to read a lot. Or well, not read, or watch videos about actors talking about acting. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the most fascinating things because for me, as focusing on animation, I have to figure out how to make these characters act properly. So I love listening to actors talk about their craft and how they go about creating characters and doing things. It kind of helps me put stuff in my head, and when you go in and you look at watching these and watching the actor who you're talking about here, um, I'm sure it does the same thing for you. Like, oh, he's good at this, or this was possibly a point that he didn't explore as an actor that I could maybe pull into.
Yeah, I mean, he was intrigued by the role because we have cults, and
Yes.
we try. We that was our whole conversation in the first day we spoke, and I get starstruck very easily, so I had to get over that hump. And then we just started talking about cults for like almost an hour, similarly in like to what this podcast might be. And then we got down to the nitty gritty and talked to character. But honestly, it was just like a fascination And then we sort of broke down at the very end what his character would be like,
Yeah.
because he had a particular interest in groupthink and charismatic leaders. But what kind of charisma is he going to explore? Is he
Yeah.
more subdued? Is he more on the speaker? And we figured it out. We played around. We talked about it, and getting to do that with him was an honor. But I do that with all the actors. I talk to
Yeah.
them, and we sort of figure it out together. And when you talk to an actor, or when you talk to any creative, really, I think it should just be playtime. It's not necessarily, obviously it has to remain professional, but it's, before we shoot, we're in a sandbox together, we're making
Yeah.
sandcastles. We're not really, you know, we're all kids, just we happen to have a camera in front of us, but we're all playing pretend.
Yeah.
I might have director over here, I'm just really telling people what to do. It's difficult,
Yeah.
but they're the ones with all the tools, and I get the privilege to see them, speak my words into existence, and with a character and a tone and a motivation. I wrote this short film and I'm directing it too. So I get the blessings and the curses of seeing it throughout the entire process. And I'm video editing it later as well. So
Is that something you normally, the stuff that you're working on usually, like as a director, is it your own writing?
yeah, so I've never been professionally paid to direct, only to
Okay.
edit and to camera operate, to write even, which I'm not the best writer. I'm only trying to get strength in that. But
Mhm.
to direct, to be given a piece of clay and then mold it to what I think the vision should be. I've never been paid to do that, so it's always been something that I've always wanted to do, just because I've never been given the opportunity. So
Yeah.
I've made it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's interesting because you know, as someone who has made like comics and has made anime and has basically done all the stuff myself, I understand how, how hard it is. And now you're working with a group of people. Usually, when I do this, I'm alone in this room.
Yeah,
You're out on set or you're wherever you are, and you have a group of people that you're responsible for to help make this project, come to life here. And when it's your baby, you're very protective of it. How do you, as a director, let go of some of that, this is my baby, and let people explore, like your actors, are
yeah.
you tough on them in the sense where, well, this isn't how I envision it in my head, or do you let them explore the character themselves? Like, what do you do as a director for a film?
I do have some laws that help me stay the course. So
Mm-hmm.
ideally, there needs to be. Oh, thank you. I just saw that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, there needs to be respect for the writing, because that would have to be bookended later. If someone
Yeah.
says A, then B is going to happen. But I think it's important to allow the actors to have a level of agency, because they understand the character more than I will eventually. I
Yeah.
give birth to him, but they raise the baby. And they think about the character more than I will at this point, because I'm thinking about the character, but I'm also thinking about the catering and thinking about the equipment and thinking about the lenses and other stuff. So I traditionally let one or two takes be what I want, if not more than that, and then let a couple takes, if not one, just be for what they want. I'm not married to specific words, like they have to say this is the way it ends. They can say it ends now, but I care more about the way they say it.
Yeah.
I'm
Get that
not quit.
emotion.
Yes, I'm not Quentin Tarantino when I have to have every single piece of grammar, because I'm more of a visual guy.
Yeah.
I came in with, animation or comics or gaming and stuff. I didn't come from a writing background, so my background is more about trying to underscore the theme in this scene, however way we can do that. And it's not just in the acting or the writing. It's going to be how, if the place is lit in an interesting and dramatic way, how far the camera is, if it's supposed to be lonely, do we put the character, further back and stuff to help underscore the sense of isolation. And you're right, I've met a lot of writers and illustrators and whoever, even game developers, who sort of sit down and hunch, and they have to like really focus. For me, the same thing in the writing process. So I'm very big on collaboration. You have to be with filmmaking. So we did a lot of, maybe two or three table reads
Yeah.
before we actually ever casted anybody, with a bunch of different people from different backgrounds. We had illustrators friends of mine, game designers, people who just were interested in helping me out, who were friends and wanted
Yeah.
to be a part of something potentially. And they just gave me a bunch of ideas. So that already wrests control away from me. All the ego that I may have had there just goes out the window when they say, I don't get this. And then I
Yeah.
have to be like, oh, okay, let me clarify this and see what's up. Because I'm making a story to be consumed by an audience. And I want to make sure a lot of that is digestible while still respecting the direction that I want to, exhibit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just looking at the Kickstarter down here, and I'm reading the little short, if you want to call it log line, I guess, that you have up here.
Mhm.
After the death of his mother, a young aspiring chef who cannot connect with his father finds family in a cult. Now we're going to talk about the cult stuff in a bit. I know you're interested in it. I know we're talking about it, but you know every everything that like I do, I know as a writer, as an artist, is a little personal to me. I'm
Right.
assuming this is personal to you, and I'm not going to ask you about like family stuff or anything, but like just the aspiring chef part, is that something that you have an interest in as well, or you just said let's give him, what would be an interesting, career for this guy to aspire to?
Well, that's a great question. I don't mind talking vulnerabilities. I have
Okay.
issues with my dad, and it didn't start out that way, but that's how it ended up being
Mhm.
sort of self therapy for me. And I already go to therapy to help with my anxieties,
Yeah.
but it just ended up being about a father and a son and how they don't know how to communicate in their sort of father and son masculine overtone, not
Yeah.
really expressing their feelings kind of relationship.
Mhm.
And I think for me to relate to the character more, I needed to give him an art. And I'd always been fascinated by cooking, not in particularly enough to be a chef, but because it's the most personal kind of art that I can think of. It's the only art that you actually eat. Like it's
Yeah.
physically the only thing that transforms you. Um, and that has such a history of abuse where head chefs are taking these young up and coming line line cooks, and they just like you know beat the snot out of them. They just kind of mold them, and it's almost militaristic. So all of that kind of coincided with cults that don't do a somewhat similar thing. And then family was just the perfect community because I kind of figured, why did people want to join cults? I've just been
Yeah.
fascinated by them. Why people would join something like yeah, Scientology is a classic example of that,
Yeah.
where somebody maybe is just recently divorced
Mhm.
and they've lost that stability. And a
Yeah.
Scientologist kind of comes around, hey, you can change the world. You can influence a lot of people. You may not have someone with you in a loving relationship, but now you have a family with us, and
Yeah.
then you replace that.
Mhm.
And a lot of people would join these kinds of things, essentially some sort of group, some sort of gang, because they didn't have a community of their own. So all of that sort of, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint each. They all interweave with one another.
Yeah.
So
No, that's it's very interesting because I actually did a little studying on cults many years ago.
hmm
I and but just quickly on a side note about the food, you're right about the way chefs are treated. And I actually used to work in restaurants
they,
before I went into art full time. I spent most of my you know jobs in restaurants, and I was considered a grill cook because I had no like actual professional training, but I worked on lines and I've seen it.
yeah.
I know what it's like. I was never into like big restaurants, but enough that I completely understand and I can relate to what it is because there was a moment in my life I'm like, should I be a chef? And what I ended up doing was talking to a chef I knew, and he's like, if you like your free time, never become a chef. And he's like, you're working holidays, you're working, and I'm like, okay, comics it is, and I was
Right.
like, there it goes. I'm going to draw for the rest of my life. But yeah, no, when I'm not in my studio, I love to be in my kitchen. So
There
it's
you
just
go.
it's a thing.
And it's beautiful because you get to present your work to someone, and then they enjoy it in no other way that can possibly be enjoyed. They consume it. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, it is. It's. I'm always impressed. Going places and seeing what people can create, and how they played and just present and stuff. And then you get that taste. Oh my god, I can sit. That'll be something else. Um, but no, Colts. I studied years ago for a comic I wrote, which I never drew because I wrote it over 100 pages, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. You know, but I studied all this like mythology and cult
Right.
thoughts, and it's the story was all about magic, and there's a cult aspect in not the first issue I wrote, but that someone was coming, so I did a lot of studying on it, and it's been a good maybe 10-15 years since I did my research, so you're probably going to refresh my memory or teach me something here. But so you said the idea of somebody finding family or just a connection with people in a cult was kind of what you were looking at here. Um,
Yeah.
can you kind of go a little deeper into cults or the idea of cults and why they fascinate you and how it brought about the story?
Yeah. I mean, I had watched an episode of Leah Remini's series on, I think, A&E about Scientology and about how she left it. And there
Yeah.
was one episode about a mom and daughter who had both left Scientology. The mom was a Scientologist. The daughter was birthed as a Scientologist. Then, when the daughter got older, she left. And then, years later, the mom decided to leave. And then, when they had both left, they rekindled. And that kind of relationship that they had was so interesting to me. They had such a catharsis after had essentially having been brainwashed for a lot of their years,
Yeah.
most for the daughter, and that just struck such a huge nerve with me, just the visual between them. And then that started a first draft for the screenplay, and then it evolved into what it is now. And now it delves into a relationship between two male characters,
Hmm.
and they explore that. Now, what intrigued me all the all this time growing up, I had never known that I had a aversion to groupthink. To not have independence was so odd to me. To not ever bring a question up during, you know, any kind of discussion because the leader was adamant that this is the way that this is supposed to be
Hmm.
was odd to me. So this is so broad. It could be from groups on, 4chan to, people who admire politicians to such a degree that they can't ever see them as being faulty in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
They're not human anymore. And to me, that just is so antithetical to the human experience where you're supposed to be experimental. Life is about tasting a variety of spices. It just doesn't seem to me like if you just stick to vanilla that you're going to have a full experience. To me, you only have one life. You might as well experience it and ask questions and be curious and try different things. A good example is that you did your cooking phase. You were like, nah, man, this is good. I'm out of here. Then you went into comics, and then you have a clear interest in animation. You want to go back, but you love filmmaking, and it's not just like something that is beholden to one sector. But imagine going up to like a teacher and saying, "Hey, I want to infuse Gendy Tartakovsky like elements of, let's say, Samurai Jack or Primal into a Hanna Barbera esque cartoon." They'd be like, "What? I grew up on Hanna Barbera. That's a silly thing to do. That is not right. The core of Hanna Barbera is to be goofy. But you want to experiment and you want to try
Mm.
it and push the medium forward and stuff.
Yeah.
But then you bring that kind of ideology to an actual life, like, oh, you can't leave the house, or you can't, you know, heaven forbid, something worse than that, you can't date this person because they're outside of your, immediate influential sphere. That's just not right. And I just, it always freaked me out. So I kind of investigated it further with
Mm.
other cults that are popular. The Jonestown Massacre is a good example of that. Moonies, Nexium. There's just tons and tons of cults or cult adjacent things or groups and hive minds out here in America. Even if you think about it too, we were founded on people who wanted to form their own sub of Christianity. They were like, nope, I'm out. Deuces, England. And then they came here and then they thrived. So this whole idea of forming your own sort of hive has just always existed in America, especially.
Wow. I mean, you're giving me a lot here just to kind of take in and think about, man.
And it's not spooky fun cults. It's the scary ones that can, like, you know, really, like, if you're, you know, walking down the street and you see a free personality test and you just lost your job, you know, they might get you. So
yeah. No, I get it. It's I mean, like I said, what I've studied, yeah, they are kind of freaky, and you're right. They tend to go towards someone who's charismatic, who think can kind of fix whatever issues they have. Now, with your story here, I don't want you to give too much away, but can you talk about, like, let me put up the Kickstarter so people can see it, but can you talk about, like, a little more about the father-son relationship and maybe how it pushes, I don't, again, not giving away your story, and how it pushes the cult experience onto the main character?
yeah, no, that's a great question, Mike. Thank you for asking. The relationship isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big inspiration for that, where the character was just not connecting with his dad. I have no problem giving things away. This is a short film. I won't give away the ending, but I will say that the dad doesn't appreciate the fact that the son is doing restaurant level cooking, or attempting to. He's trying to do an art at the highest possible level, whereas the dad is just, man, give me some Chinese food. Just give me the basics. I don't want any of that foo-foo stuff. That's his ideology. And that is just a schism there, where the son is beholden to the dad. You can see in the thumbnail there that the dad is leaning on his son because he has a physical ailment that's going to be seen in the film. So he's completely relying on his son for physical assistance, and his son is trying to look to his dad for emotional support, but he's not getting it. And once you don't have that, you can be easily taken in by someone or some group that may have negative connotations. So
yeah, I mean, let's see, what do we got? Mikey says, give me some of that fast food.
That's the producer of the film. He's a sweetheart. Yeah.
Well, thank you for tuning in. This is,
thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Wow, this is exciting. Yeah, again, I don't want to give too much. Like, I don't want to. I don't like giving a lot away. I feel I want people to watch this. I want them. Well, let me ask you. While I'm talking about people watching it, are you looking to like put this around film festivals? You're going to release it somewhere? What's the plan after the Kickstarter?
Once the Kickstarter ends, and once production ends, and then post-production ends, in terms of editing and putting it all together, it's going to hit the film festival circuit. Honestly, man, it's super tough with short films to get like a huge base. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be features that really get like the entire, interest. It's just heavily marketed as something to be investable in, but not so much short films. But I'd like to hope that with the crew and especially the cast, that this thrusts the story way out to the front, that we'd get on something like HBO Max, or I guess now Max now, or Netflix. There are short films on these streaming sites, and that would be lovely. But as of right now, I'm only trying to really tell as effective a story as I possibly can. It's a very skeleton crew, and we're trying to look for more potential investors and more executive producers to try and help with actually distributing the piece. And I think with the cast that we have and the story hopefully being as relatable as it potentially might be to a vast audience, especially now, I think post 2016, I think there is a market there, and we're hoping to grab it.
I'm looking at your mood board right now.
The Bear. Oh my
Yeah,
God, so
dude,
good.
that new series. What starts? Did it start yet, or is it
Yeah,
later?
season 2 started. Yeah.
Oh, I loved the first season of that show.
How did you feel, Mike, after working, as briefly as you did? Were there any flashbacks watching The Bear?
A bit, a bit. Like this, I felt they really kind of captured what it's like in a kitchen, on the downtime, on the
Hmm.
when they are a little busy. I mean, I forgot where they're supposed to be in the show, but you know, where I was, we didn't have any of the violence stuff that they had to deal with,
Yeah.
and but yeah, no, I thought it was a really well executed series for season one.
Yeah.
I thought the idea behind it, showing someone who is kind of just he wants to do something well, but he's kind of like given up at the same time, and he's trying to find that spark to keep him going on something that he loves,
Right.
was just such a nice touch to it. Um, Bear was amazing. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
also love Chef. I thought that was a great movie as well.
That is one almost the opposite, where the Bear
Yeah,
had Carmi, the main character, dealing with the restaurant as if it's like an albatross around his neck, like an anchor holding him down. He's like, man, I gotta do this, but I don't really want to. And then
yeah,
the chef, he just loves cooking. He just loves
yeah,
it. He just wants to express. He just wants to be the very best it can be, and he you know fudge all that gets in his way.
yeah. Have you watched on Netflix's show that he brings on, like, it's him and what's it, is it called The Chef Show, where he travels and
I haven't seen that one, but I have
yeah,
seen Anthony Bourdain. I've seen
yeah.
him visit Brazil, where my family is
Hmm.
from, and I've seen him visit other places. And it's always interesting to see sort of an outsider's perspective on
Yeah,
another culture's food and how they kind of lose the tourist stamp that might be on them once they
Hmm.
really start to eat the food, because that is such a representation of culture. Like, this is one of the first things you think of when you think of somebody else's culture, is like
yeah.
that place's food. So I love it.
That's actually why I love what was that show? Somebody Feed Phil. If you've ever seen that,
That one I haven't.
again, it's another Netflix. It's Phil Rosenthal, I think's his name. He was one of the producers of Everybody Loves Raymond, and he
Okay.
traveled around the world. He has like 3 seasons or so. He travels around the world, and he goes and explores the food, and then finds where some of the food has come from, or he just learns
Mm,
about all these cultures, and it's just, for someone who loves food and loves understanding cultures, it's like a
yeah,
great show. I mean, but it's only a 30-minute episode, so it's not like
I'll
you can
check it out.
get deep into that. But yeah, also check out the chef show, where he brings on different chefs. He's usually with the chef, I forgot his name, who taught him how to be the chef in the chef. You know, I
Right.
know
His
it
consultant.
was a little confusing, but he was the guy who taught him how to do the knife skills, all that stuff. And then he goes in and they prepare meals with from other restaurants and stuff. It's really cool. I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, but yeah, I still have a few more episodes. I
Yeah,
actually
sounds
tend to
dope.
watch a lot of cooking when I'm not, when I'm away from art. Like,
Yeah.
I tend to watch more cooking shows.
Yeah, me and the girlfriend just have been watching Hell's Kitchen. That's a
It's a
bad
good show.
example.
No, but it's
Um,
still
it's
good.
hilarious,
Yeah,
especially the editing. But I'm wary of that show now because I don't want to be yelling at my casting crew. I don't want to get any skill, any. I don't want to absorb any of his. Um, it's raw. I don't want to.
yeah.
I don't want to yell that at my at my crew.
Well, unless you're talking about the emotion they need to get, but
Oh, there you go. Exactly. The emotion needs to be raw.
but but no, that's a good show. And you know what? For all the negative that what's his name, Ramsey, gets, he's actually a good guy from what he does. Like, I've heard stories where he's taken people who he's kicked off that show and paid for their culinary education and has
Wow.
hired them afterwards.
Afterwards.
Uh,
I
yeah,
knew I know a guy who he was the sound guy in one of
Mhm.
his shows. I think the one where he travels to other restaurants to help them out and give
yeah,
sales advice. So he
yeah.
worked on that recently, and I asked him, "How is Gordon Ramsay on a personal level?" And he's like, yeah, he can be pretty intense. He expects perfectionism not only from the chefs but he also expects it from the crew. You have to be on your P's and Q's. But he's incredibly intelligent and he's fairly warm, all things considered. So,
no, that's always good to hear. I've always liked him, and like I said, he gets such a bad rep, and so much that I actually named a villain in one of my comics after him.
There you go.
It's
Morden Ramsey.
It's a little different, but yeah, yeah, no, I get it. It is what it is, but yeah, this is some. So, you're showing how much the budget goes here.
Yeah, so complete transparency there.
Yeah, no, which is great. I mean, and the crew getting the majority is always great. I love to see the people who are involved, be the ones who are really benefiting from this stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can skip that part. We can skip that me right there.
Oh, okay. Well, no. It's talking about you. I mean,
oh man,
you can talk. This is your moment to shine and tell people about you. Tell people about,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Talk about what.
I guess.
Go ahead.
That's just my last short film, man. So, I've worked on. This would be my fourth short film, and I've worked on a feature. This is definitely, I think, my most premiere work. Definitely better than my feature, and that has nothing to do with the cast of the crew. That's all me. I think I've just evolved as a storyteller, and I'm just getting better and better with each piece. I'm super confident that this is going to go somewhere. I don't know where, but putting my words on a stake right now, I think this is going to be something super special for everyone involved. We had the table read just last week, and just seeing the actors actually speak their characters. Again, I get starstruck very easily and I fanboy out, and I got the chance to do that with my own piece. However, self-grandizing that is, it was just an amazing, I don't know, surreal moment to just go through. And I think it's just going to be amazing. So Phosphine is just the most previous work that got some festival love.
Well, I will say, number one, I wish you a lot of luck with this, because everything you're telling me sounds great. You joked before we went on the air that you make films so you don't have to read,
Yeah.
which I think was hysterical. But what was that something like? I don't want to say was that what drew to you. You don't like reading, but was there, because I read books. I read comic books. I watch cartoons. I watch TV. I watch whatever. Everything. And this is something I've always talked about when I talk about storytelling. I used to teach storytelling for almost 20 years, and it's probably my favorite thing to talk about. And I always talk about how there's different things. Like when you read a book, anything, it's all about timing. You read a book, that's based on how fast you can read. A comic book, do you read that fast or slow? Because are you staring at the artwork? You control the time in a book, and you control the time in a comic book. The second you move to a visual, like moving medium like animation or television or film, you control the time for the viewer to be engaged into that story. Was that at least, to become part of film, was that just something that was that just kind of spoke to you? I mean, I knew I was a bad reader. I didn't like reading. I didn't get into books until I was in my 20s,
Yeah, same. So I'm an incredibly slow reader.
Same here.
And I think that's probably because of just our tastes in visual mediums, probably. But it's just I grew up with video games, so I needed the feedback, I needed the loop, I needed something real quick. Games gave me that immediately. Films gave me that relatively quickly. With books, I have to often reread because I do find myself sidetracked unless the book is really interesting. One of my favorite books is just a biography on Robin Williams. If I had to get a tattoo of an actor, it'd be that guy. I love his influence and his story. And if it was a comic book, usually comic books are so interesting to me because I've always had a theory about great filmmaking in that you can encapsulate your entire film in one frame.
Yeah.
And I think comic books teach that really well. I think if your film is about, for example, you know, let's say mine explores loneliness, the thumbnail that I have of a guy in the as far back as the camera can go, just in a hallway where everything is kind of busy and he's in the center, he's kind of looking down. I think that tells you a lot about his potential character, the potential story that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And different people will get different ideas. So often enough, it depends on the comic. If it's action heavy, I find myself going with the action, and like with the case of manga, just going like beat for beat for beat.
Yeah.
Something that's a little bit slower paced. There was a great graphic novel called Sailor Twain, which was more of a horror piece.
Okay.
And I remember there's a striking image of this guy staring, and the whole thing looked like it was made out of charcoal, and his eyes were deep black. And I don't get scared by books. I get more
Yeah.
freaked out by games and films, but a visual stagnant static piece of imagery just sent chills down my spine. The context wasn't even that scary. It was just about a scary mermaid or something. But
Mhm.
that visual was just so strong and painting esque. I imagine if we're 300 years removed in the 1700s, just looking at a painting could strike fear into someone. And I think they did. People would look
Yeah.
at paintings and they would cry and they would go. Things in churches, murals, would just like completely help somebody just sort of break down and release whatever catharsis they'd have to go to speak their piece. So, yeah.
That's it. That's all right. Let's move on to some of your other people here.
Big Hank. Yeah.
Good. Tell me about some of your crew here.
So we have Nathan. That's the top billing, of course. He's the one who's playing the cult leader. We needed to get a guy who is really just bringing the star power, and really just going to show somebody with a kind of what me and Nathan kind of agreed on was a subdued type of strength and charisma, a softness to him, so that he can manipulate essentially the main character, and he did a fantastic job with it. So we're really excited to see it.
That's great.
Yeah. That's my boy Muhammad. He's the DP. I've been working with him. In fact, me and Muhammad worked on Mike's documentary years ago. We both went to Jamaica and shot it. So he's my ride or die, and I've been with him for a couple of years. We went to the same high school together and sort of grew on separate lines, but we've intertwined, and now we're going to be on this together. And the guy is just a complete Swiss Army knife, a utilitarian. He's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So so that's Conroy. That's our main character there. I love that man. So we've cried in front of each other. He's like a brother to me. We've known each other since 2012. He's been in 2013. He's been in every movie I've ever done since then, since 2013. And he's a star here. He's been a side character there. He's the deuteragonist in another piece. He's just, I can't, there's too much to say about Reginald, or I just call him Reggie, but he's a fantastic friend, and he's like a brother to me.
That's fantastic. It's great when you can work with people, who you kind of connect with on that level, because they know if something's like your passion, they're going to do it well for you, because they don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, and I don't want to disappoint him. It's a learning tree. It's a learning curve for both of us. So, and this gentleman here, he's the one who's playing the dad. He's a sweetheart too. He's had a lot of work in voice acting, so he's interesting because he's got a thud to his voice. He's got a bass. He's got an impact, which I think is going to be really pivotal for a fatherly character who may not be there in terms of presence, but certainly still be felt.
Any of his voice acting of anything in the audience would know?
He's done. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's done Grand Theft Auto 3. He did a character there, and he was recently in the Luke Cage show. He was sort of like a barbershop friend, and he was just one of the guys just hanging out with one of the characters and stuff. And he's been in commercials. He's had a load of experience, and he's just a real down to earth guy.
I'm curious about his. He says I've self-published an adult humor book and a children's picture book. So I'm curious about both of those.
He's paradoxical. Yeah, he's got a wicked mind. Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah, so she's playing. So if there are 4 characters, there's the main character, there's the cult leader, there's the dad, and then there's the cult leader's right hand woman, the recruiter, the one who keeps sort of the glue together, and that's who she is. She is that person who would you potentially see handing out flyers. In her case, she's a chef, and she is who our main character is going to look up to. And she's great. She's a baker too, so that helps a lot because I don't bake for nothing. So.
She's got some good credits behind her too.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic. She started out as an actor, I believe, and then went into acting coach, and now she's doubling back, similar to how you are in animation. She's like, okay, time to get in front of the camera again. So she's dipping her toes back.
That's great.
Yeah. The old college buddy of mine, another brother of mine. We've just been at it for so long. He's a goofball, and what he really brings a lot is a lot of good energy. He seems serious here, but that smile of his is incredibly infectious. He's very sweet. He's a father. He knows how to handle us kids, so he's going to be fantastic.
Big effort.
Yeah. This guy is very interesting because we met through the film festival circuit. He gave me a lot of wise advice on how to. He is somebody who worked with a big name actor, and if anybody has any questions about working with them, contact me or contact Andrew, and he'll be more than ready enough to share his wisdom with you. He's very giving, and he worked with John Wesley Shipp in his feature-length film. So the guy who played the Flash in the original '90s series, and then the dad in the original the CW show. I forgot.
I have a few John Wesley Shipp stories. He's such a good guy. I've met him.
So there you go. He's been at conventions. So originally we wanted him, but he wasn't available. He didn't really feel out the story with him, which is totally understandable. He would have played a cult leader. It's not the most glamorous one, the glamorous role, but he was fantastic as well. From the dialogue that we were having between him and his agents. So, but Andrew is the one who really initiated it. So he's helping hold my hand through that, and now we're going to work together. He's going to help as a second cam op on that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm with you, man. As big animation fan, so I always like to draw out the story ahead of time. And this is Steph. She's like a little, a big little sis. She lives out in Oregon, I believe, and we had met while she was still here in New York. And she's storyboarded my last 2 works, including this one, and she just helped visualize the film. So it's one thing to actually write the story out, but it's another thing to put pen to paper. And what I did was draw really bad stick figures, and then she would take them and obviously make them pretty, and then I would send that to the crew, and we would do some experimental rigging. We would go to, for example, we're going to go to a kitchen. We took the storyboard art. All right, let's see how this goes. I take my camera out, record it, do a little video storyboard of it. Mm-hmm. But I can't really explain how integral storyboarding is. It's like, without it, it's very difficult to visualize. And I think as an animator, as you probably well know, you have inherent directing skills because you're orchestrating a person. You're putting them in a certain angle, and you're doing a certain level of emotion when you draw them with frumpy eyebrows or whatever the case is. And then you keep on going, and then you have to orient that with a background and music and stuff. So it's all very similar, if not a one-to-one. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't start without a storyboard for me. So.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I do the same thing. I storyboard everything out.
Yeah.
Rarely do I write actual looking scripts. I usually just start drawing like a comic and just here's a panel. And I just I do it old.
With the lines underneath.
No, not even the lines underneath. I do it like an old Hanna-Barbera or Looney Tunes. I put the word balloons like I'm drawing a comic.
Right.
So that's kind of how they were storyboarding back in the day, and I didn't realize that was it. I didn't read a book or anything. I knew comics.
Exactly.
So I storyboarded. This is before I learned how to properly storyboard. I storyboarded almost as if I was making a comic, but it's just rough and loose, And then here's the dialogue, or here's the camera movement or something, and that's maybe a note I would write down or draw the arrow or whatever, and that was it. And then I remember watching a documentary on Hanna-Barbera, and they showed some old storyboards, and they were just like let's say an old Tom and Jerry cartoon, and it was just a comic strip. That's all it was, with words. And then Looney Tunes did the same thing, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm in good company.
You mimic the masters
Yeah,
incidentally, and I
yeah,
think once you reach that level, I think you could take that as a merit of honor at that point, right?
yeah. That's what I do. I'm like, oh well, the pros are doing it, so I'm doing it. That's kind of like I was talking to someone once, and I forgot what he was working. I worked for Warner Brothers. We were working on a show, and we were discussing perspective. And he was showing a group, and I wasn't like in a class. I was just watching. I was like, he's like, well, this is how we put characters into perspective in a setting, when we're getting ready to like build the background or to animate and see how the character fits in. And I'm like, oh crap, that's exactly how I do it. I'm like, okay, I know perspective. It's what
There
I
you
mean,
go.
like, but something like I don't know, like was this some of my training? Was this natural to me? Like that's sometimes I don't remember where I got the stuff. Like I can tell you right now, I learned composition from my father. He was a photographer.
Right.
He showed, so like when I was going off later on in life to do art, I just naturally had good composition because my dad showed me how to take a camera and look and create a frame, and what makes a good picture. And I didn't realize that. He was just like it was something fun as a kid, you know. But he taught me composition.
Yeah, I think there's sometimes is like a false veil behind what the big budget productions are doing. Where often enough they're just doing similarly, if not exactly what we might be doing, but just at a higher production level
Yeah.
and very much highly a much higher artistry level because they have to deal with this day in and day out. It's their job, it's their it's their lifeline at that point. So I've started to notice that as well. Like, oh, this is how they organize their scenes. It's the exact same way I'm doing it. This is
Yeah.
perfect.
And that's great when you hear that. It makes you feel good. Like you're not screwing up in your head. Like because you mentioned your anxiety earlier. I think I probably mentioned it on the air. I'm like just a nutcase of anxiety and,
Right.
and stuff. And I'm always second get like okay, just here's a quick example.
Okay.
I've been talking to my friends, a few friends of mine about animation. This is where my anxiety comes in. The other day, a couple of weeks ago, I posted a Wiz comic, and it didn't get as much interaction as like the last three did. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, did I stop being funny? Was it a bad joke? Did I
Right.
draw it poorly? What's going on that I didn't get that engagement that I was getting before?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, do I need to rethink the strip? Do I need to do this? And then then honestly, that's how the animation came back to me. It's like, okay, well, I love my Wiz character. I'm going to focus on creating the Wiz. But the other thing that like, because one of my friends said, are if you don't love it, you got to give it up, even if you know you have fans or whatever. He's like, you just got to stop and give it up and move on to something that you love. And I'm like, I love the Wiz, but what else do I love? Like, what would I give up everything for if I had to stop doing comics? And I'm like, it's animation. So I said I got to start animating again. So it's the Wiz and animation right now, and that's it. You know, and
Yeah.
maybe the Wiz will get animated, but
Yeah. And you certainly don't have to share anything
yeah,
that you do on your personal time. I think
yeah,
it's I think I think it's I think it's sort of dangerous to say that, if you um don't absolutely love it, that if you can't make a job that you have to pursue it to its nth degree. I think the fact that you have cooking as a hobby is super healthy. You don't have to be an amazing cook. You don't have to be the best cook in the world. You can just have it just to have it. But I think
yeah,
in our passionate, ambitious, anxiety ridden minds, we have to be a perfectionist about this and we have to reach a certain level of a threshold for us to consider ourselves successful.
yeah,
And I think, you know, just pulling that back a little bit can really help us with our brain farts and looking
yeah.
in the mirror every morning. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I completely agree.
yeah,
Let's get to the last guy though, real quick here.
yeah,
Mikey, we see you, just so you know.
yeah. He's
Now,
a sweetheart too. He's been super supportive. He's been helping me trying to get locations, and he's just been a cheerleader, and he's going to try and help us get some more funding. He's going to try and help us with the distribution that comes after. Just a comrade at everything I've been doing. He's just been he supported my crowdfunding campaign for my feature film and the short after that, and he didn't have to. He watched it. He told me he liked it. I was like, what? That's awesome. He gave me a huge confidence boost without even knowing it, and I tip my hat to him. He's gonna be there ideally if his travel work. Right now he's in Jamaica. He's not even in the States, and he's watching. That's how supportive he is. He's just an amazing guy. So
thank you. I think you might be my first viewer from Jamaica, so I appreciate that.
Go on, my youth.
I appreciate.
No, he's lovely. So, and he's going to be there on Thursday if his flights allow, where he's going to play an extra. He's going to play a homeless guy for us, and he's going to try and get some behind the scenes. And there are going to be tons of friends of mine who are going to be playing as extras as well.
That's great.
Your student that we spoke about was trying to actually get there, if work will allow her, to also come and record some video for her sort of camera work and stuff, and get some behind the scenes BTS. So,
well, I know from when she was my student, film was her like career trajectory.
There you go.
And I know that after she continued her education with that, and I would love to see, like I would for all my students, see them move into that if that's still their dream. So if that's, I hope she shows up.
Yeah.
Hope she shows up. But yeah. Let's check out some of the rewards here. Which first of all, can I tell you? I love your little logo here for the broken cookie.
Yeah.
I think it's just the simplicity of the image with the way the crumbs are drawn. I love it.
So credit goes to my man Vincent, a longtime friend and an aspiring musician, illustrator, writer, a Renaissance guy himself. Right now that is a work in progress, but he's pretty much set the standard for how it's going to look in terms of its blueprint. So it's going to be a cookie with sprinkles, with crumbs. The simplicity is there, but we're thinking of it being off of a film poster, where it's a little bit more realistic. But the minute he showed me this, I was like, I love this. This is great. This is a great example of what we can do with this, and I'm a fan of it as well. In fact, I just showed it today. I just spread the word about it today and try to get his name some love.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to. We got a comment from Dominique. Says, I'm proud of him. I'm assuming that is the girlfriend.
That is the girlfriend. She's also who's been incredibly supportive. She's going to help cook for the team. She's going to help with some makeup. She's been taking notes when I've been asking her to. She's better at cooking than I am, more consistent, and she's just a sweetheart. And right now she's probably laughing, crying, being put on blast.
That's great. Well, if she's going to do any baking, she should make a cookie cutter of this and totally. I would totally make cookies like that. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. The second I saw that, I'm like, I have the sugar cookie recipe I would use.
Oh, interesting.
And then I'm like,
so do you bake often?
Not often.
Okay.
What it is a while back, just to contribute to family events, mostly on my wife's side of the family. Her family would do a lot of cooking, so I'd make desserts. I'm not usually fun. I don't usually enjoy baking as much because it's more exact. When I cook, I can kind of cook through feeling. I can kind of cook through taste. I'm more of a. I'd rather be on that stove and experiment with what I can throw in there. I do that with baking as well. Like I mentioned to you before we came on, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and you just told me you just saw the movie. Well, every year on my birthday, I take the day off, and I sit down and I start at 9 a.m. And I watch the entire extended cut straight through until about 10, 11 p.m., whatever it is. And I'll tell you, I do it every year on my birthday, but I do it throughout the year like 3-4 other times. I'm like, I love those movies. Now, on my birthday, though, here's where it gets different. I bake, I cook, I make all the food in a Lord of the Rings themed type.
You got to sell that, man. My girlfriend would buy the heck out of that.
So like I'll make
Yeah.
all food I have to eat with my hands, or
Right.
I've done things where I've made fresh bread. I've actually made the lambus bread that they do. But it's basically a shortbread cookie.
Right.
But like the last thing I experimented with was different flavors in there. So I tried last time I made it, I tried like some fresh orange juice, fresh squeezed orange juice, and then some orange zest in there to give it a little different flavor. My wife wasn't too into it because she's not a big fan of orange flavor stuff, but
Citrus. Yeah.
it was so good to me. Like
I love
had
orange juice. Yeah.
yeah. So it was like, so I get to play around and experiment. So I do bake. The one thing I'm most known for in like the family things, and by the way, just so I'll make the announcement now, not next Wednesday, on June 12th, the Tom and the rest of the Spider Web crew are going to be on, because on June 15th is Kids Day at the Spider's Web from 1 to 5. I will be there doing some drawings for free, and I'll have a few things to sell. There will be other artists, but what I always bring to these events, and the thing I am known for, and I will bake, brownie chip cookies. So
you guys are there, go support Mike, because he's there putting in the work, making tree beard brownies. Come on now.
Tree beard. I would, dude. I got my pop tree beard right over there. But I should do that. I should figure out how to make tree beard cookies one day.
He's such an interesting character to me because he makes no sense. He says, "Don't call me a tree," but that's in his name, and he's called an elk. I forgot his species name. So
I'm bad with all the Lord of the Rings for life.
Lord of the Rings for life. For that,
like I said, I'm terrible with pronouncing things. So I know like a lot of it in my head, but it doesn't come out of my mouth properly. So
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that was a sidetrack. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, on the 15th, the Spider's Web, located at 887A Yonkers Avenue, across from the casino in Yonkers, New York. I'll be there from 1 to 5 with a bunch of other artists, and we'll be having a lot of fun. And on the 12th, when Tom comes on, there's going to be some announcements that are going to be some really cool stuff. I'll even make an announcement that for something I'm doing at the event. But yeah, so let's get back to this. So the logo, and you know what? Remind me in a couple of days. I'll pull out my recipe stuff. I'll send you my sugar cookie recipe.
For sure. Yeah, we got some from a place called Dad Bakes. Just a boutique on a website, and we already got the sugar cookies, but we'll absolutely hit you up.
All right, sounds cool. So for $5, you get a social media shout out. That's cool. Listen, hey,
yeah, man.
Listen, if that's gonna help and be like, thanks for backing at Michael Grassi, and then I get like 10,000 followers, I'm all for it. You know. Let's see here. So then you got the digital poster, like that. That's what it was when I saw this. I'm like, I would just love a little postcard of this image to put on my wall somewhere, whether it's behind me, in front of me. I just love the simplicity, like I said, and I would love
that's
that.
Good to know. That's good to know. That gives me ideas for things in the future. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome here. So you get the poster, then you get the stickers. That's cool. And this is a metallic sticker, or
no? It's just an example of what it would look like if it was like on a metal canteen. Kind of wraps around a little.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love stickers. So.
And then you get the actual film.
Yeah. Once it hits, it's the film festival circuit for sure.
So this will come out when you're on the film festival. The other people won't see, can't see it before.
They can't see it before. Initially, that's how I did have it, but I've realized that the people who you do send it to, fantastic. Obviously, that they supported it, but they might share it with someone else, and you have to be wary of something like that. So,
I know, I understand. I totally understand. Then a physical poster.
Yeah, because it's going to be probably 11 by 7. Yeah, it says right there, 11 by 17, and I have to package that. So once it gets to that physical price, once it gets to that physical labor, I have to start charging a lot more, and it includes the sticker and the film and everything else.
Yeah, I was going to say for $100 just for an 11 by 17 poster, but
yeah, right, just by itself, you get nothing.
Yeah, no, listen, I love it. I do. I really do. If I was still in like a classroom setting,
Yeah.
I would totally buy that for my classroom. Like that poster.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
would because
Me too. I
again,
love. Yeah.
it's simple branding, and you see that, you recognize it. Like I don't want to hate to say it, but like if I was to say something like the Playboy Bunny or Coca-Cola, it's immediately recognizable to
Interesting.
me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like once this movie comes out and people associate this image with the movie,
Yeah.
everybody who sees this is always going to know.
Okay.
That's what I mean by like I've taught graphic design, all this stuff,
Right.
and like logo design. And what I love about the simplicity, I mean, that's really what it is. It's just the simplicity, simple colors. It's recognizable,
Right.
and that's what makes this a good logo
Wow.
for you.
I'll tell Vince. I'll tell the graphic designer. That's top marks from Mike on that.
And it's and this isn't knocking his art because I think it's great. There's also this like immaturity to it in the sense where it's not like perfectly clean lines. So you're drawn to it a little bit more than seeing a perfect
A little
circle.
messy.
Seeing there's that those imperfections that we connect with as humans, because nobody's perfect. So we'll see that, and cool stuff. Like that's the thing. I see it on a hat. I see it on a mug. I see it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the rewards down there is an apron, just because I love the idea with all the cooking stuff that we just put it on that as well.
Yeah, that's great. I love the hat. So for 200, you get the hat and everything that
else.
basically comes.
Yeah.
There's the apron. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And again, it's just repeating decal, something that you would see on a professional button down or something like that. Just constant motifs repeating.
Yeah. I love that. That's the 250, and then we come on to the water bottle.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea for the water bottle. How the bottom's kind of the cookie.
Yeah.
Then
that was totally incidental that we used. I don't want to gatekeep. It's just we used Redbubble, uploaded the design, and they were able to wrap it around for us in that way. It was fantastic.
That's cool. That is awesome. And what is this? A sketch version of? Does this come from the
storyboard artist?
Storyboard artist, yeah.
Yeah. So some of that 500 is going to go to her, and then the rest goes to the actual rewards and the crew and the cab post production, everything. So that's why it's so expensive, because she needs her due diligence for doing that. And people, I was talking to somebody 2 days ago where they're like, "Oof, I'm tempted to get the 500, but I just can't quite get it right now." So she's going to hold out and wait for it because she loves her work in particular. So her name is Steffo Doodles. She's abstaining from social media right now, probably for her mental health, which I should do as well after I'm done with this hell-forsaken Kickstarter.
I always tell everyone who comes on the show, almost everyone comes on the show, when we talk about the Kickstarter and how are they handling it, and you were just bringing up like the stress. This is why I can't run a Kickstarter.
No, it's terrible, man. I message hundreds of people a day, and I only finished through my Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn lists of friends. Facebook is 1,000, Instagram is 500-600, and LinkedIn is 1,000. So I had to message these people individually, sometimes personally, modify the template that I have, and say, "Hey guys, I have this passion project. Let me know if you want to see it." It's how we got in contact, Mike. I just hit you up and be like, "Hey, I was interested in talking to you anyway." It's oh, cool, let's do this. So my brain is just still not working. Like, I have flashes of chat boxes closing, and it's just insane.
I could imagine here. Wow.
Yeah.
And then the Lord Executive Producer for 1,000.
Yeah. So you get your name in the poster, you get your name top billing in the credits, you get your name plastered however way it's going to be designed, and you will be just sort of immortalized with the piece at that point. It's I don't know if it's a high honor, but I'd be humbled to think it would be for somebody.
Listen, I think it's great. I would, if I had cash like that, I would totally do something. Listen, here's the thing.
Sell them cookies, man.
Yeah, I never have I never have the cash I want to donate to all the Kickstarters I want to.
Me too.
And I'm sorry, I want to say back. I hate the word donate. I actually prefer the term back. I want to back these projects.
Contribute because you get a reward too. Yeah.
And you know, there are lots where I just want to like just throw money at them.
Oh yeah.
And I just can't. But when I see things, when I'm looking at animations or I'm looking at films and things like that, that's the ones I want to put a lot of money to because I know how budgets go.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I wish I could throw you that kind of money. You know.
Well, that's very sweet of you. I back. You can see in my profile back like a bunch of projects. Some of them are graphic novels. A lot of them are tabletop games.
Are you a big tabletop gamer?
Oh yeah. I'm introducing the girlfriend to dungeon crawling game called Arcadia Quest, which was done by a Brazilian company out there. So, fantastic. And, I put my money where my mouth is, and I've supported it. And I mean, I contacted those guys too. Hey, I got a Kickstarter here. Like, got to be a little shameless with that.
Yeah.
So
no, you do. Listen, I know the reason I'm asking is I used to play a lot of tabletop gaming. I don't have people to play with a lot these days, and to me, it's my favorite type of gaming is tabletop.
Yeah.
But like, what I wanted to ask you about is first of all, how long you've been playing tabletop gaming?
I was into video games a lot, and I kind of discovered the love in college at our local like game club. So 2010. And
okay, so you've been playing for a while.
Yeah, I would say so. And I own a bunch of them and stuff. I have like a hobbyist's collection of it. I've sold a couple here and there. But I'm a fan of the Dice Tower. I subscribe to their show. And I've even contributed to the Dice Tower and there, I think Indiegogo as well, just because I love the work that they do. And they do a lot. They review a lot of freaking board games.
Oh, yeah. So, no, but what I wanted to get to is right now, it's coming out like in Hollywood. A lot of people play D&D.
Yeah.
And what I like about it, because I didn't play it as a kid. I didn't have a lot of. Well, I didn't have any friends I knew who played.
Same.
And the one person I knew who played, me and him did not get along.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was. And so I didn't really play until college, like just like you. But my college happened in the 90s, and so I got introduced and I played a little bit, and we played on and off and whatnot. But yeah, I got back into it. I'd say maybe within the last 8 years.
Right.
And then
that's so much fun.
Last 2-3 years, I'd say. Well, actually, that's not true because I played during the pandemic. But I got a job for like 2 months DMing for a library for a group of kids. I'm like, I can honestly say I'm a professional DM now, which was
nice. Yeah. I've dungeon mastered before, not knowing any of the rules.
Yeah,
and it was a great exercise in storytelling. If we can underscore that, because
and that's what I was going to get to anyway. Exactly, but continue. Yeah. Go.
No, it's just about creating things on the fly. Yeah. BSing, bull crapping. Just like, okay, you take that left. There's a 3-headed gorilla wolf in front of you. What are you gonna do? Let's see what happens when you do this roll. For me, I think at this point you've reached a level of like structure, but it was so taxing on the brain. We had drinks to help us get through it. Yeah. So
well, I mean, listen, what I like to do when I DM, and again I haven't DM'd since I did the thing for the kids. Right. I like to tell stories. I'm not 100% as structured as you would think. I come up with a premise. And I say, okay, these are the monsters that they're going to encounter, and I figure out what the hit points are and all that stuff. And right. And then it's kind of like, I'm going to be like, I create a map for myself, and because it was virtual, I couldn't show the map, but like I create a map and I say, this is here, this is here, this is, excuse me, whatever. And at the time, I was drawing a lot of like monsters and stuff, like almost like old school Castlevania type thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have these kids play Castlevania as D&D.
That makes sense.
So I ended up I ended up creating the Belmont Manor, and they had all these different types of monsters to fight, so different rooms that they entered,
Yeah, right.
and there was different things like they could, you know, one of the things I did was that I really enjoyed is I played with the idea of books. So like you go into if they entered the library, different books were like portals to different uh places for them to go to.
Oh, that reminds me of the Bookmaster. You remember that movie with Macaulay Culkin? Oh, the Page Master.
Page, yes,
Master.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, maybe
What a
I got
throwback.
it from that. Wow.
Yeah, you never
I don't
know.
know. I know, but
Whoopi
yeah. So I
Goldberg
did
was
that.
one of them. So.
and then the other one I did for them, I was, I'm like, we'll do mythology. So I made a twist on the Odyssey for them.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of fun up until the last game, because they like didn't have a clue what was going on for them. Like they didn't realize what the hell they were doing, and then they almost all died. So like I'm trying not to kill kids. I'm like throwing hints at them. Like
you gotta teach them what's for, man. The lava. Don't step into it, dummy. What are you doing?
So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, no, but I was going to get into. I mean, like D&D is such a collaborative storytelling game. It's great for people, like us who want to tell stories all the time.
Yeah.
And for someone like you said you love that collaborative, atmosphere. Me, and this is going to come out wrong. I don't like working with people. I don't like people, and I like people I like persons. I like people on individual bases. But once you get into a group of 4 and more, it really just kind of throws me off. I mean, 5 or more, I could do 4 people. That includes me.
Yeah.
So I have trouble working with other people on certain projects. Once it starts becoming a large project, I get issues. But if it stays small, I can work with it. But I think, again, that goes to my anxiety. I don't like big crowds.
Social anxiety.
I don't like all that stuff. So
me,
I keep it tiny. It's not that I hate people. I don't like large groups. Cause
I think you have to. There's this feeling of potentially having to like individualize them, and you can't put all your attention into one person. You can't like crack a joke with that 7th person all the way over there and like connect with them and bond with them. I feel
but also for me, like when you're working on a collaborative idea, the second you hit more than 4 people, it becomes mob mentality. Once you hit like 5 or more, like there's always one who's going to try to take over. I think when you're in a balance of like an equal amount of people, you can kind of talk things over. But once you get that odd number,
right,
you're just it just becomes difficult.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's just me. And I'm going to be doing the spider's web with where people are going to be coming in. A lot of people, and like I said, I don't like to be around it, but I go out and I face my fears.
There you go. Do you know how many times I've wanted to just self-implode the project? When you all right, you got a big animation thing.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up to draw on Sunday, and you're like, oh man, it's Saturday night. Do I really want to get started on this in the morning? So we're shooting in 3 days. I'm like, is there any way I can like stop? This is too much. This is a lot, dude.
I guess.
So it's just an incalculable amount of anxiety that I've had to go through, particularly with the Kickstarter. That's just like the worst thing. And I wish I had more time to dedicate to the creative side of it. But once I wake up in the morning after taking that melatonin, 10 milligrams or whatever the night before, man, it's just going to be so much fun. It's going to be just the reason I imagine you draw is because part of you loves the fact that you get to see your imagination exist.
Yeah.
And the same for me when I get to see my characters that I drew in my mind and gave them a voice are given even better voices and a level of gravity that they just didn't have before in my mind or in any form until they were being performed by an actor and recorded on camera and lit with this red sash behind them. And they're all inside. They're all in this backyard serving food to people. And they look at each other and they tell how the other person. It's such a goose pimply feeling. So.
Yeah, no, I get you. I've always said, to me, the reason I love comics, and you wrote up, I love to see my things come to life, but all you need is a pencil and your imagination. If you could draw it, you can go there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with animation, except you need a little bit more equipment,
Yeah.
and maybe some more people. But like when you get into things that like you're doing, it totally changes the way, I think the imagination works. You know what
Maybe.
I mean? And
I do think
it's
you can simplify it in terms of you and a camera. And the phone
yeah.
nowadays are just as strong as they ever were
Oh yeah.
in the 70s with the giant Panavision in the 60s,
Yeah.
and even up until the 2010s when things were really starting to get digital.
Yeah.
So I think creativity is, it's just a flood dam that's been opened
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
express yourself, and that's why you get inundated as much as we do in social media with different kinds of like even podcasts are a form
Yeah.
of art, and there's like, what guy doesn't have a podcast at this point,
I know. I do. It's
support it, let's go.
no, but that's the thing. And I was actually with a friend yesterday when we were talking
Yeah.
about this, and I was, and God, I don't want to knock anything because I don't. Anybody, I look at it this way: anybody who has worked hard and got something, and they deserve that. Whether it's a film made, a publisher
It's a miracle.
deal, it's
It's a
because
miracle every time.
those things are so few and far between these days.
Yeah.
But we all have, and that's what I was saying. We all have the technology. I mean, like you just said, we could make a movie on our phone if we wanted to, realistically. And I've actually used to teach like kids how to use their phone to make films. And I would but like with a comic, like this was just one of the conversations. Like, do you really need a publisher behind you these days? This was our discussion, and my theory was no. Now it's kind of cool to say, hey, this company published me. I got a big name, or I got someone who loves my work and they want to show it off. But at the same time, and this goes specifically to comics, we have things like print on demand sites, whether it's Indie Planet, Amazon, Ingram Spark, whatever it is. You could literally put your book up there and sell your book and try to distribute it, create a website, landing page, whatever it is. Your book is published now. You don't need the publisher. What you need is good marketing to drive traffic to buy that. You know what I mean? Like, and this is something I've been thinking about in the comic world for such a long time. And it's like, that's the cool thing. Like, the technology and everything is here for us that if we really wanted to do it alone, we could.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of having a publisher is there's less work for you to do, and they handle stuff, and you don't have to worry about things. So there is the balance, and what do you want, what don't you want to do. But when you're everything making that comic, you don't need to split the money with the publisher. You know what I mean? It's like, so I mean, obviously film is different.
There might be some similarities there.
Yeah.
For example, you can pay to put your film on Amazon Prime.
Yes,
it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but you can do it. And I'd prefer to not have to do that, because that would, one, that I'd feel a little, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right for me. Like, it just feels like I am, putting my movie in someone's face, but with their phone, with my phone and stuff like that, without their permission. I think I want to reach a little bit higher with what for this film particularly.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could get it on Tubi or something like that. And that's no disrespect to people who put it on Tubi, because any film, like you said, that's made, to me, is an actual miracle. It's incredibly difficult. No matter the technology, because there's a level of organization and level of compartmentalization that just doesn't apply to most other art forms that you have to kind of equip yourself with, and a lot of like Renaissance knowledge, just lighting, equipment, acting, logistics, producing. And with self-publishing it, I think self-funding it is more interesting now, because of the lack of gatekeeping that happens because of technology. The fact that you said you can animate your own piece, even with a light crew or something by yourself, it'll take a long time, and you'd have to probably cut some corners here and there. Mm-hmm. But you can reach someone's emotional part of their brain with your animation all on your own, is a fantastic quality. Now, whether it reaches that pedestal, sometimes that's out of our hands. Sometimes it just doesn't click with the audience. Sometimes things are released ahead of the zeitgeist or too late. And maybe, like you said, the marketing isn't there to really back, because that is unfortunately the truth. If you have a huge marketing, you will see that movie in theaters. If you have a tie-in, if you're a Marvel movie, if you're Barbie, if you are Christopher Nolan, who he is his own marketing brand at this point because of the films that he's made, then you can, wrest control away from that. But if you're someone like us, you have to really try and like push that quality. And unfortunately, know a lot of people. This is an incestuous business, and you have to like know like that person to help you thrust, or have a lot of money saved up to try and get you there.
Yeah, no, listen, I get it. Listen, my animations are going to be shorts, like really shorts. If they're going to be, the goal is to eventually do like a 7-minute short, like the old school cartoons. But
understood. Yeah,
I'm going to go more like probably 3 minutes max right now.
Okay.
But I'm going to probably be doing 15 to 30-second.
Yeah, let me know if you ever need any help with that, dude.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, like I'm when I get ready to do it, I already know I'm gonna, like right now my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Michael Gracia. I'm gonna create a whole new YouTube channel specifically for the animations and just keep them up there. I already am building the plan. I haven't animated anything yet, but I'm already building the plan of how I'm gonna get it out to the audience. And there is a plan eventually, not right now. This is probably a good 2 to 3 years away, of creating a short series. And I'm one of those guys that would pay for Amazon or Tubi or whatever. Absolutely. Because, even though I'm putting something up like on Tubi, I know the way it works. Okay, I made whatever deal, I pay them or whatever, or they maybe decide, hey, we'll just put you on, whatever it is. Even if it's 3 cents every time someone watches it, I will make money. So I already know I'm building an income stream, at least, instead of doing the stuff that you're doing, because that's going to drive me nuts. So I don't want to deal with the extra stress and the anxiety. And that's just personally to me. Like I said, you do it awesome. I totally respect that. When people can do the stuff I'm not doing, I give them a hell of a lot more respect, because I know it's not going to work for me. And I'm like, I love that these people can go out and do this stuff, and they have the strength that, I don't have, so if I don't get huge, my thing is, I've never cared about being big and famous. I've even said this since I was a kid. My goal was always to make enough money as an artist to live comfortably.
Yeah.
And if I have a couple of fans, I have a couple of fans, and I'm hoping that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. I don't even want to be necessarily. I want to be famous amongst video editors. Mm-hmm. If a video editor, that's Bryan. He edited that short film. You heard about that? That's enough for me. I love the idea of that, but I don't know about it being famous. I don't even necessarily about being rich, because if you're too rich, you dissociate and you're not grounded anymore. So people like billionaires, they kind of freak me out too. I'll probably make a film about that, because they're just like, they live on a whole other world, and they can't even associate with people anymore. They can't go on a podcast called Get In Tune, because it'd be like, what are you doing? That is not like Joe Rogan or something like that. That is like, you've now reached a certain threshold. You can't go out and get groceries on your own. You can't walk in the park. Like, that's just insane if you get that rich and that famous.
No, I get it. So there's a lot we can sit and talk about. And one of the things you brought up was editing, and we were an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half in here, and I was going to start wrapping up, but editing was something I was going to talk to you about, because that's your full-time job, but that is the key to making a good film. Is at the end is, how is it cut, and what are we making people, what are you bringing to the audience? So I want to keep it a little short, but can you just tell me a bit about, I'm not going to make this educational, you don't have to give me tips or anything, but like, just about editing, like, what is that process to you? Because you said you're going to edit, like is it a personal experience, or is it something you do as a team with another person? Like, how does editing work for you, and what is it about editing that you love?
I think it's like a God complex, honestly. I think it's a lot of control. I think it's like I think it's a lot of depression because you see um, a lot of the mistakes, and that stays with you.
Yeah.
So usually I would go through all of that hassle because I needed to save the money. I needed to keep control. I wanted to have everything tight and in lock. But I think this time around, I think I still will do everything that I'm going to suffer through. But I think I also want to actually get a friend to also edit it. I think I'll organize it and do all the technical stuff, but then give somebody else the clay in addition to me, because it's a short film. It's nothing
Yeah.
crazy. It's still relatively long. It'll still be about 20 minutes,
Okay.
but I think it's time for me to just kind of give that rest that control over to someone else for once. It's usually not a team because of just the nature of it being short. But I do recommend in any field, even if as isolatory as illustration, to have people look at it. You
Oh yeah,
need third party objectives, and this includes
absolutely.
me for post production. And I want to, keep myself at that word. So I think I'll have a buddy of mine who I've already spoken to, who again drinks. I was like, hey man, maybe if we're finishing with this, can I send you this? It's like, yeah, man, no problem, free of charge. I was like, what? All right, I'll take that. So yeah,
No, that's great. I have a few friends that I show artwork to,
right,
and I show it to my wife, who's not an artist,
same,
and
same, yeah.
Because she's the every person. She's going to look at it and see
Exactly.
if something is off or whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't make
Um,
sense.
so yeah, I mean, everybody else who I show it to, they're artists, and they're either going to be like, Michael, you do great work, or you know what you could do, you can correct this here. You're like,
Right.
because I've had people where I just show them stuff and like, no, it's fantastic. You don't need to change a thing. And then I show
You
it to
trust
another
that.
friend. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't. I don't. I appreciate it. I'm glad they like my stuff, but you know, I need that critique to make sure it's
Yeah.
going out good. So I have a friend I'll send stuff to, and
Beautiful.
he will be the idea guy. And he's like, it'd be great is if you do this. And
Bounce right there, and it
yeah,
keeps going.
and then I get angry because I'm like, damn it, now I got more work to do. But it's
Yeah, it's the
what
creative's plight.
yeah.
You see, like right now, you're projecting a project in 2 years,
Mhm.
and now you're just like, oh man, here's more stuff I got to work on and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. Now we're gonna wrap up, but I'm gonna have two questions for you. My first question for you is that a Wolverine tank top you're wearing there?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm gonna cosplay as a Cowboy Wolverine, just one of his many versions from the comics, with my girlfriend being Phoenix, Jean Grey, and a friend being Cyclops, and another friend being Rogue. So I'm getting ready for that.
Where are you cosplaying? What show?
New York Comic Con.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Nothing
I'm
crazy.
skipping that this year.
No, I go every year in some way just to dress up, play dress up, support artists, get their posters like the one you have right there behind you. I get a lot from like around here. I have an Iron Giant poster over there that I love, my favorite animated movie. Yeah.
It, just so you know, my wife was telling me, I don't know if it happened yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's sometime. I think it might be July or it was the end of June. Iron Giant's going to be back in the Alamo.
Really?
Yeah.
My girlfriend just got me the Blu-ray with the art book included in it. Oh,
I'm dying to get the. Oh no, and I think I might have the Art of the Iron Giant book.
Yeah, they came out with the Blu-ray, this long strip of it. Brad Bird talks about it. It's that's another.
Oh, it's not. No, it's not on DVD though. It's the actual book. I think.
Yeah, there's a Blu-ray collection that comes with the book apparently.
Oh, not the version I have.
Copy.
Because I got some art of stuff behind me here. Art of Garfield, Turtles, Cuphead.
Yeah. Oh, Cuphead. Yeah, that's a good one as a reference.
Love that stuff. But yeah, okay. Now my other question for you is, when you're not busy working and watching stuff for work, what is your go? Do you have like a guilty pleasure movie or something you're binging right now that you enjoy?
Professional wrestling. That's like a huge guilty pleasure of mine. I don't know why. It's not smart or anything, but I think it reminds me a lot of like kung fu films. It's stunt work. It's ballet, but just more physical and a lot more damaging to the body. Honestly, it's just a fan. I saw my first indie wrestling show 2 weeks ago at Brooklyn Comic Con. I was front row at AEW. I've been to WrestleMania. This is what I spend my money on, and it was just. I'm not a big sports guy, so when I go to these things, I feel what the sports fans might feel. I just lose myself, and I call the bald guy there, like not you. I call another bald guy. hey man, your hairline is receding. So is mine actually. And he just like, you stink. And it's just wonderful. It's just a nice yelling, venting, weird group
That's cool.
mob chasing the Frankenstein's monster with the torch. I'm in the mob, man. I'm trying to get him.
That you know what? I never heard it explained that way. I actually have a lot of friends that love wrestling. My wife used to like it when she was younger. I never got into wrestling, but I also never got into sports in general. Like I used to play as a kid, but I never enjoyed watching them. And
I had a lot of friends who were kind of like jerks, so who were kind of into sports and stuff. So maybe there was some association there and stuff. I'm not sure. And I like weird stuff. I like weird stuff. I like badminton and swimming. Like I watch that sometimes.
Oh, I don't watch that, but I love those are two things I actually enjoy.
Yeah, dirty stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So I don't have any other questions, but and I'm just going to thank you for taking the time out of your day to hang out with me. I'm glad I could set this up for you and do a special episode. I threw for the audience. Vin Penn says I agree with that notion. I don't remember what we were talking about, but thank you to whether it's.
Oh, that's the artist of the cookie.
Oh, okay.
That you endured so much.
Yes, yeah. I love the cookie you created. And what was I going to say? To the audience, I put the link of the Kickstarter into the comments. So whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube right now, you have the link in the comics. I ask you to please go to it, donate what you can. This sounds like it's going to be a great film. I'm looking forward to seeing it at some point. I'm going to donate what I can to it. So yeah, just again, thank you for coming on. If you don't mind hanging out backstage for a moment, wrap up.
Yeah, of course. I just want to say thank you, Mike, as well, for setting this up. And I think something you touched on real quick earlier about educating. I think what you do is not only educational, but it's also entertaining in the fact that you have a love for something and you want to express it as loudly as you possibly can with 4 people or less. I think it's very admirable. So
thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I'll talk to you in a moment. All right, guys. So that was tonight's show, my special episode. Definitely go check out Bryan's Kickstarter. It's called Brazing is the name of the short film. It does look like it's going to be great. There's 34 more days to go, and he's a bit over halfway there. So he can totally pull this off, and he needs your help to do it. For all you guys who've been watching, thank you for watching tonight. Please come back Wednesday night when I talk with Hades. That's the name he goes by. His name's Hades of ASP Imagination. And this whole month, I'm going to be, except for the 12th when I talk to the Spider's Web, I'll be talking with people from ASP Imagination. It's going to be their month today. I'm getting to. So again, thank you guys for watching whenever and wherever you are. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you guys Wednesday. And don't forget to donate to the Kickstarter. All right. Bye, guys.